Sorry if this is low energy, guys. I've had to film this like 3 times now from various forms of garbage, so let's just get right into it. I can't anymore. So a few months ago, I was browsing Newegg by price lowest to highest because I just wanted to buy something to verify my payment credentials so that I could maybe have a chance at buying a RTX 30 series card. And I did eventually end up getting a 3060 Ti, but that was the only thing that I could get. So I went and I bought what was advertised as an Athlon 2 X2 220. So there's a lot of 2s in there, but basically what it means, it is a Athlon 2 with 2 cores, and it is a 220 model, which means it is pretty much the lowest basic tier garbage that AMD produced at that point in time. Like, I don't think they produced any Athlons below that. I mean, maybe like a 215, but I'm not gonna get too deep into that. So I ordered one earlier in the month and then one later in the month as I was trying to get random GPUs as they came out. And the seller contacted me and asked me if I was crazy and if I had a motherboard that was compatible with it. So I've got a few motherboards. I had an AM3 motherboard, an AM3 Plus motherboard. I was like, yeah, I can make it work, guy. So they sent me not an Athlon 2 X2 220. They sent me an Athlon 2 X2 270, which is a slightly higher bin. It runs at a higher clock speed. It's pretty much the same, higher clock speed. Still no L3 cache. It's a low-end garbage tier part, 65 watts, which is kind of a lot, but not by today's standards. And then the second one they sent me wasn't even an Athlon. They just sent me a Phenom 2 X2 B55, which I think is some like out of a pre-built. Like, I don't think they actually sold this CPU as a bin. I'm not sure. You guys can let me know. But it's all old, like 10-year-old garbage. Like, it's trash. Nobody wants it. They probably get it for like pennies a piece in China as they're like recycling garbage. So that's just how they end up getting it. So this thing's kind of interesting because it's actually a Phenom X4 with cores deactivated, and you can actually sometimes with the right motherboard, you can actually turn the cores back on. But that's not what we're trying today. We're trying what they sent me as close to the cheapest thing that I could get off of Newegg that says processor on it. So Athlon 2 X2 270, not 220, which it's better, so that's nice, I guess. So what I have here is Benchy set up with a Asus M5 A97 motherboard. It's pretty much the standard AM3 motherboard that I feel like a lot of people had back in the day. If you had any kind of like low-end trash dozer, you were running this board right here, or at least I feel like you were, because that's what I was running. And whenever I would go to like Tiger Direct and like look at stuff just to look at stuff, they had like boxes of these things. They were like super cheap, super good. I mean, I think they were pretty good. They're not good for overclocking. They're just good out of the box. And the CPU guy also sent me thermal paste, thermal grease, and its thermal conductivity is 1.42 watts per meter Kelvin, which is like terrible. And it's probably less than toothpaste. And we have a video on that, but we were comparing against Thermal Grizzly. Who knows, maybe we'll try to compare this garbage against some toothpaste because this is probably trash. But it doesn't matter because the temperature really doesn't matter with the CPU. It has no boosting functions. So as it gets hotter, it doesn't, speed up, slow down, any of that garbage. It just runs at a fixed speed no matter what until, say, it heats up too much and crashes, which it's not going to do even with some terrible thermal paste. Only got 2 core, guys. We're not doing anything crazy. And then I'm gonna go ahead and go to Bottleneck Nirvana and pair it with my 290X. There is literally no way that this GPU is going to see more than like, say, 10% utilization. Like, it's just not happening. This thing doesn't even bottleneck with like Ryzen CPUs, like lower end Ryzen CPUs, so there's no way a 2-core K10 CPU is even gonna try to bottleneck this. Honestly, I think this card is pretty, and that's why I run it. One of my favorite cards. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. This thing can play Cyberpunk, and it's from like 2013. We have a video on that too. Go ahead and launch this thing up. Fire up. Come on, pick up the sheet. Let's get screen recording going. Let's get into the BIOS. New CPU installed. All I did was unplug it, plug it back in, just for video purposes. Like I said, I filmed this like 4 times already. I haven't been happy with the video quality, and I'm kind of a perfectionist, but not really. I just want it to look good enough to where I don't feel like I'm wasting your time by watching a trash video. So constructive criticism is always welcome in the comments. Let's go into advanced mode, see if we can't overclock this thing. It starts off at a 17 times because clock speed is weird in these old days. But if you try to change it, it just reverts back to 17. So there's no overclocking function on this thing. Let's get into Windows. It doesn't actually take that long to boot into Windows. It has an SSD, which really helps out any CPU in getting into Windows. All right, so first things first, let's just run Cinebench R15 because I feel like it's gonna have a bad time. Let's wait for it to stop using 100% CPU utilization from just starting into Windows. Man, it takes a really long time after starting up into Windows to actually like calm down. That looks like we're heading to an idle state. Let's go ahead and smash it with Cinebench. I've already run Cinebench. I'm just gonna like play some like footage of this real quick to show you how long it took, but it scored a 161, which is less than half of what you would score with a Athlon 3000G. So same amount of cores, that obviously has hyperthreading, this does not. So you can see where you're kind of running into a elephant in the room with a processor as cheap as a Athlon 3000G. Obviously, this is a cheaper combination of parts if you can get it. I think like a motherboard, an AM3 Plus motherboard costs like $40, $50, $60 for, you know, probably one of these. And then the CPU costing another $10. Not a big deal, but I feel like the Athlon being over twice the performance is worth being $100 for an Athlon and an AM4 motherboard that you can get your hands on, because there's tons of those out there. They're super cheap. They're getting super cheap, and it's definitely going to run a lot better than this thing. So let's get right into maybe trying to play some browsing the web. That shouldn't be hard, right? It's just the internet. So let's go ahead and check out a quality coil whine video at 4K. Look at us, we're making it up to like the 3rd result. We're gonna be in the big league soon. Make sure you get subscribed. Well, I just subscribed to myself, how about that? So at 4K, it cannot even play. It can't play 4K video. I think it's some kind of encoding problem where it just doesn't have enough horsepower to decode the 4K video. If we step it down to, say, 1080p, it struggles, but it plays the video. So you're kind of limited by your 10-year-old CPU here in that you can't even play 4K video. So that's another use case kind of out the window. Let's try gaming. We have 16 gigabytes of 1600 megahertz RAM, so that's definitely not going to be a bottleneck. Not even being sarcastic there. I paid good money for that DDR3. All the options are completely lowest. Like, let's throw any idea that it's resolution that's causing this to be a bottleneck, because that GPU is going to be running at like 0%. Like, it's not even going to be trying to play Skyrim. But this is kind of the best case scenario of frame rates. It's like not even half of 1080p. So it might be hard to see, but we're getting like 30 FPS. This is not a good experience. So this CPU came out about the same time as Skyrim did. And actually, it came out well before Skyrim did, and it wasn't even a good CPU then, so this is not going to be a good, it's not even trying to be a good experience. And if you can't see, the GPU is doing essentially nothing. Like, it's not even off of idle temperatures. Like, that's the temperature that it idles at, so you can't play Skyrim on it, but can you play Counter-Strike on it? Well, it loads Counter-Strike. Let's go ahead and make sure everything is set to absolutely minimum. Again, resolution should not be tied to CPU frame rate. CPU is just commanding the GPU, and the textures from there are all taken by the GPU, so most of it at least. But we're going to give it the best chance we can and run it at the lowest resolution that we can. Takes a little while to load into Counter-Strike. Let me in, let me in. Oh, it's bad. Oh, it's really bad. So yeah, 30. 20 FPS. Actually doesn't feel like 480p. Yeah, I mean, it's not a pleasant experience if you can't tell. I mean, obviously it is kind of playable. Let's get out of Counter-Strike. Let's try to play that other esports game that everybody loves. Let's play some League of Legends. I wonder if I could play Among Us. I should try that next. Create a custom game. Start game. Cannot start. What? No, you're fine. Don't tell me that. If you know somebody who loads League slower than this CPU, it is clearly because they don't have an SSD. Like, it literally cannot load slower because of your CPU. Like, I think this is the slowest CPU that anybody would play League on at this point in time. But if you're out there and you're playing on something slower than this, I'm sorry for you, buddy. So yeah, immediately off the bat, we're getting like 120. It dips into the 80s. So like 80 to 100 something FPS, which isn't too bad. Clearly this is a far more optimized game than the, well, I say optimized, there's just less going on. All the textures are off right now. I mean, obviously that's not gonna really affect this. Yeah, this is playable. So, League of Legends. If you wanna play League and only League, maybe some other Among Us garbage might be an option. Yeah, let's exit. Let's leave the game. Let's go try to play some Among Us. Oh my god, are we really 100% playing Among Us? No. No, 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 no. Are you saying that the Among Us PC was better than this? Is it like a bot game I can play? I forget. Free play, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Among Us is 30 FPS locked and it's 2D, so yeah. Plays okay. You need some low-end garbage for your kids to play Among Us to shut them up. This will do it. I mean, obviously, you could put a much, much lower-end graphics card in there. If not, the cheapest one you could possibly find. It'll probably play it just fine. Alright, what's the last thing we should try? I guess we should try to launch Cyberpunk because it is all the rage right now. See if it can do it. I don't think it's gonna do it. I think by now it would have at least launched the GOG splash screen. Oh, it's ramping up. Is it gonna do it? Oh. It's flatlined. It's dead. Don't send. They don't need to hear about how an athlon won't run their AAA title from 2020. And I mean, that's really gonna do it. You know, just do a quick rundown. One, they didn't even send me the CPU that I ordered. Two, it can't play 4K video on YouTube, so you can't even really use it with whatever your living room TV is if you wanted to just use it as like a YouTube box. Can't do it. unless your TV is 1080. Even then, it feels kind of bad. Pretty sure there's some Raspberry Pis out there better than this. And then it is less than a third, and it's like less than half of a 3000G in terms of like productivity. So that's out the window, and at least a 3000G has the instruction set to run 4K video, so that's nice too. It can't play Skyrim, or at least it can barely play Skyrim. It can barely play CSGO. It does League pretty okay, it does Among Us pretty okay, because those are some really low-end titles, and they just kind of work on whatever, so League, Among Us, it's really all it can do. And I mean, some other, text-based games, but I don't think I'd be willing to play a lot on this CPU. So with that unsurprising end there, I'm going to end off this video, guys. If you liked seeing, or if you're ever curious about what the cheapest CPU you could get off a Newegg was, here it is. It's not that great. I mean, if they actually sent me an Athlon X2 220, it would be even worse than this, so it's kind of a blessing that they didn't. And, leave a comment on what other low-end garbage, some constructive criticism on how the audio and live video is sounding, maybe what I should leave as the background on this wall here, because I can make it anything. We have a sign shop. Get subscribed for the future, and have a great day, guys.